the Bible has absolutely not been 100% established by archaeology. There's still a great many questions, archaeological questions, particularly about the early chapters of Genesis, for instance, but also about the Exodus, about the origins of the Israelite monarchy. We've only recently found actual inscriptional evidence of the House of David, and even that still is in some quarters controversial. And then, of course, matters like the resurrection of Christ are simply not accessible, not amenable to archaeological proof or disproof. So, no. And many of the cities and sites in the Bible are still unknown or dubious. You have great advantages in the Bible because a lot of these place names still exist today, and they're recognizably the same. Jericho, for example.
The archaeology of the Bible has found Jericho. Unfortunately, Kathleen Kenyon, Dame Kenyon, the most magnificent archaeologist of Jericho, and several studies since her time have demonstrated extensively there were no walls.
I think Living Hope Ministries is clearly using a double standard. They don't allude to any of the archaeological problems of the Bible. They overstate the archaeological problems of the Book of Mormon. They don't cite from archaeologists who say, we haven't found evidence for this, for this, for this, or for this. They don't cite archaeologists and scholars who say, there was no early Judahite monarchy. There are some who actually claim that the history of the monarchy doesn't begin till after the Babylonian exile, that all the previous biblical stories are fiction. Those are the kinds of arguments that are going out there in the real world.
The movement that's strongest in Israel now amongst their archaeologists is that the Bible is not very reliable. And that movement is gaining ground in Israel. It's tragic to see it. When I lived in Israel, every archaeologist believed the story of the Bible. Even if they didn't believe the miracles, they believed the events, they believed the places. Today that's going by the wayside, and it's kind of tragic.
If biblical archaeology is proving the Bible, my question is, what is it proving about the Bible? Are Protestants willing to accept the fullest ramifications of what archaeology is so-called proving?
But Living Hope Ministries gives its audience the false picture that the Bible's been 100% proven true. That simply is not the case. It's completely irresponsible and in a way very disingenuous to portray it in a way that is false. People often fail to grasp the limitations of archaeology. I remember a major illustration, a major dig that was illustrated in National Geographic a number of years ago, and they had a 4-page fold-out showing this marvelous city of El Mirador in the lowlands. And an archaeologist friend of mine, looking at that gorgeous painting of all the priests, their feather plumes, and the huge cities and the avenues and so on, said, do you know how much that's really based on? It was based on 2 archaeological trenches that had been dug, about 50 yards long, about 10 feet deep. And the rest was extrapolation. It was all inferences drawn from what they'd found there. He said, imagine that Salt Lake City or even Provo had been buried over for 1,000 years or 2,000 years. Then somebody digs a couple of essentially telephone booth-size holes into it and reconstructs the entire social and intellectual, cultural life of the town from that. I mean, those are the limitations that archaeologists work with. They're always guessing. The guesses can be more or less informed, but they're imperfect. And most data isn't found.